Okay. Entonces, Trista Pewapisconias, Nesicasan, Nehiao Esque, Little Pine First Nation, Ostinia. Hello, my name is Trista Pewapisconias, a Cree woman from the Little Pine First Nation in Western Saskatchewan. I am the Indigenous Relations Lead for Cooperative Structure, and I would like to acknowledge I am currently calling in from the Treaty 6 territory of the Cree, Lakota, Dakota, and homeland of the Métis. I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to participate in the Cooperating to Enhance Native Food Economies. Due to my location, I will be using Canadian terminology through most of my presentation. So as I had mentioned before, I'm from Cooperatives First. We are a nonprofit business development organization funded in full by the cooperative retailing system through Federated Cooperatives Limited. We were founded in 2015 and we opened our office in Saskatoon in 2016. In that time, we've worked over 100 projects across Western Canada. Our mandate is to promote and support business development based on the cooperative business model in rural and Indigenous communities. So Cooperatives First assists rural and Indigenous communities grow and thrive using the cooperative business model. Cooperatives First was established stemming from the Cooperative Innovation Project, created by the Center for the Study of Cooperatives at the University of Saskatchewan, and was funded by the Cooperative Retail. So the SIP project was designed to see if the co-op model is relevant for rural and Indigenous communities in Western Canada, and if so, what were the barriers to entry? So the project had engaged various rural and Indigenous communities through surveys, community visits, and statistical research. And in the conclusion of the study, it indicated that cooperatives are indeed a viable option for community economic development, and more clarity of the rules and obligations and business development are still required. So we Cooperatives First helps provide the clarity and guide organizations and members through stages of forming and growing a business using the cooperative model. So in March of 2021, Cooperatives First launched the Your Way Together campaign. And the campaign is to inspire Indigenous communities to consider using the co-op model in many community-based projects. Included in the campaign is the Your Way Together website, the free downloadable guidebook on starting a co-op on a First Nation, workshops. They have a newsletter, case studies of Indigenous co-ops in a variety of industries. We also interview experts in Indigenous economic development through our podcast. So I will play a promotional video that on how the concept was created and the work behind the campaign.
I believe there's big opportunity for our First Nations communities. The concept of cooperative models and the principles behind cooperatives, I believe, mirror what our values are within our communities. We could create multiple jobs in multiple communities if we are able to come together and have that conversation about the model itself. Far too often it's the First Nations leaders in the community or the board of directors. Why can't we have community members being part of that control?
Starting a business on First Nation is much more challenging than off Nation. The Your Way Together guidebook is a collection of information on developing a co-op on a First Nation. It includes information on the co-op model, legislation that applies to businesses on a First Nation and business development, including financing on a First Nation.
There's a story behind the graphics. The design visually represents First Nations from the West Coast, the Pacific Northwest, all the way through to the Plains Cree in Saskatchewan. And I'm really proud that I'm able to pair these all together and create a mosaic that represents essentially a map of Western Canada.
I hope the guidebook starts a conversation within communities to see whether the co-op model is a right fit for them.
I'm an advocate for it, and people need to hear it and actually see it in action.
So the co-op model, Indigenous communities can approach new agriculture projects with any business model, whether or not it is a sole proprietorship, corporation, partnership, and utilizing the cooperative business model. So for those who are unfamiliar with the concept of cooperatives, it is a business model that aligns with the structure very closely to a corporation. It is a separate legal entity where members can create and would have that legal liability as a corporate structure. So what is a co-op? A co-op is a business. It's run by a group of people with similar interests that make decisions together, share in the business's profits. And in Western Canada, it is run by a group of 3 or more. However, in Saskatchewan, where we're located now, there's a group of individuals are required to start a co-op. It is legally incorporated and can be either a for-profit business or a nonprofit business. And co-ops operate in almost every sector of the economy. Although co-ops are different, are a lot like other businesses, they do have key features that make them different. So the members are the owners, and they all have the same amount of decision-making power. So it goes back to the one member, one vote. And co-ops give their profits back to their members based on how much the member uses the business in the year, not how much they've invested. And distribution of profit in a co-op goes like any other business, where it pays for the organizational and operational requirements like rent, wages, inventory. And co-ops do need to make a profit. But with the profits, what can be done a bit different. So instead of the surplus or profits going to shareholders based on how much they own, they can be distributed to members based on how much they used the co-op that year. So cooperatives are formed when members of the cooperative are working collectively to gain access to a commodity or undertaking that they are trying to receive. So they can be made up of nations, independent producers, or individuals to see how the opportunity for them to work together in a business. Co-ops are usually formed where big businesses and governments do not support or see the potential, but it's the community members that require these services and want to support themselves. And where communities work together to benefit people both individually and community-wide. Creating new access points where individuals can. So to reach new markets, so individual farms can use co-ops to gather individual products, such as produce, and sell them under a brand or sell to larger retailers or export to new markets. For procurement, so members can use the co-op to procure large quantities of items together just to bring down the cost of whether or not it's seeds, fuel, support services, or equipment for individual members. Co-ops are also used within farm support, so including equipment purchasing or sharing, transportation, or specialized marketing. So cooperatives are quite versatile in the way the structure can be used and how profits are distributed. Members receive benefits on the use of the co-op, and they also have the opportunity to be structured with more community involvement. Members can see the benefits to the membership with the transparency to see where the profit goes. They are owners, so they will be able to share in that transparency. Education and training has been also a high priority in co-ops, and for also First Nation leadership, co-op membership, and communities. So some cooperatives actually put education for members and youth and community program into the operational activities of each co-op, and not only teach about the operations of the co-op, but to also incorporate traditional knowledge into the programming of how the co-op works. So Indigenous communities can and co-ops can incorporate traditional agricultural and fishing teachings to help the next generation carry on these practices. So a quick overview in the types of cooperatives. There are many types. So each cooperative type is based on how people want to work together, or what is their goal or outcome that they're wanting to achieve. So consumer co-ops are often stores owned by shopper, but any co-op members who are consumers of the co-op's goods and services are owners. So this could include daycare co-ops or credit unions. Community service are also, or nonprofit cooperatives can't distribute profits based on how much patronage, dividends, but they can distribute to other forms of continuing the co-op's organizational needs, or donating them to charity. These also will vary on the jurisdiction you're in, but mainly the legislation within Western Canada outlines how nonprofit co-ops can distribute their profits. So community service co-ops are usually seen as community halls or medical centers that are set up with this structure. Housing co-ops are created when people who live in the same complex, instead of paying into a rent or mortgage, they pay into the member fee. Residents are the decision makers, and they create the rules for people within the housing co-op to live by. Worker or employee owned are any kind of business that is owned and operated by the business employees. And I also have the traditional like producer marketing, which is the farmers, fishers, artisans, or anybody who wants to come together to brand or market their business. We have value added is a type of or a function of a co-op, and it is a form of the producer or marketing co-op. And this is increasing the value of a product from its original state and transforming it to new products. The co-op is owned by the producers, but the cooperative is responsible in transforming the product into something new that can be sold. And this is often seen in agricultural cooperatives. So in the past 5 years of operation, Cooperative First has had many conversations and talking to different communities on how Indigenous communities can enter into the agriculture industry. So because each community is unique and has diverse resources, land bases, amount of capital, and they want to see different outcomes and have different missions and visions for what their project is going to have. A one size fits all approach does not work for many of the Indigenous agriculture projects. And so we've seen a lot of different observations, and in our observations, we've noticed that agriculture is a $49 billion a year industry. So through one-on-one conversations and using external research, including the Farm Credit Canada Agriculture Survey on Indigenous agriculture, there's been reports and forums held on the topic, and several themes have emerged for communities to start in this industry. So some of the outcomes that have come from much of this research is centering Indigenous knowledge and traditional relationships to the land, capacity building within our communities, and building respectful partnerships and relationships with one another in a holistic way. And kind of operationally is being able to access financing, like farming, and creating equitable economies that would see a growth in this industry. So some of the opportunities that have come out are gardening, community gardening, creating Indigenous food, and food processing. So some of the other benefits stemming from the value added of many agricultural co-ops is producers are paid by the raw materials that they bring into the cooperative. And it's the cooperative's role to increase the value of the product and create something new. And then the producers will actually receive an additional patronage dividend on the final product. So in a sense, like creating these type of value added organizations and cooperatives bring in more rather than a producer working on their own. So while examples of Indigenous agricultural co-ops are quite limited in regards to like other corporate structures, it's usually other larger structures and business types. Communities and business development law are more familiar with corporations, partnerships, limited partnerships. And so those are why some of the kind of lack of examples of Indigenous co-ops are out there. And that is why Cooperatives First was created, was to create those supports for communities getting into the industry. So over the next section, I'll draw on a couple of two different co-ops that have been used in agriculture. So, but we also have heard many examples, like anecdotal evidence of non-incorporated Indigenous co-ops, and some that are work as a co-op but aren't incorporated as one, or some that have just been removed by like provincial registrars, and so they're not legally a cooperative, but are still working as one. This is why there's a limited amount that we can discuss in the next section. And so the first one is River Select. River Select is owned by 8 First Nation owned fisheries in British Columbia, throughout British Columbia. And members were concerned about salmon conservation and sustainable fishing, and competing with large fisheries, commercial fisheries, but they also wanted that connection with the land. So these individual fisheries have a centralized processing and distribution network. And the co-op itself has a formal arrangement with leadership to make sure that the products are created to create jobs, as well as protecting the land and the fish stocks that they have available. So the value of salmon conservation and sustainable fishing is quite important to River Select. So the River Select sets quality management for the fisheries, and they have monitoring systems, traceability systems from the start, right from the point of harvest to all the way to where they're distributed. So the owners of the cooperative are the 8 independent fisheries. So the First Nations fishermen selectively harvest the River Select wild salmon and conserve the natural environment. And fishermen will supply the fish and take them to the local fishery for processing. So the cooperative, its duties is to market the salmon using shared administration, sales, branding, creating the distribution network. And it sells the salmon globally. And the co-op also takes the raw product, and in addition to just selling the frozen salmon, it actually turns it into new products to sell to consumers, like with wild salmon jerky, flash frozen salmon, ready to cook frozen salmon, and maple glazed varieties. So the next cooperative I will highlight is the Food Forest and Learning Center Cooperative. I'm quite proud of this example here. Not only was it created to preserve the land and the natural foods in the area, but it was also Cooperative's very first project we assisted with the incorporation of. So it is incorporated as a nonprofit community service co-op. It is comprised of 6 Indigenous women, which are 3 generations of women from 2 families. They have a 50-acre parcel of land filled with natural food and herbs. And the Learning Center also hosts homeschool classes, gardening workshops, and living area. I'll now show a short video produced to just give a highlight look on the Food Forest and Learning Center co-op.
On the shore of Manitou Lake sits a 50-acre parcel of land rich with natural food and herbs.
There's food everywhere. There's fruit, there's herbs, it's incredible. There's sage,
Aptly named, the Food Forest is the first of 2 locations that make up the Food Forest and Learning Center Co-op. The second is in the town of Viscount. The Learning Center, a decommissioned church, provides temporary housing for families in distress and hosts classes and workshops. When asked about why the co-op was established, founding director Maggie Bluewaters responded.
I see the need for food security, even though it may seem ironic, we're in rural Saskatchewan. The need is still here for food security. Like I always say that you need awareness first, and then you have some knowledge, and then you have action. So that's really what our cooperative is about. It's a response to need.
And why did Maggie and the other founding directors choose to form a co-op?
I felt that it was very close to a tribalness. It was very close community in that same way, and that's exactly what I was looking for. This work and food security also then tends to healing, and it's good work. It's fun work.
And what was forming the cooperative like?
It was a process that really was not that difficult once we had some guidance. It's like anything in life, that guidance is what brought us here, and now we're ready to go to work, which is very exciting.
So in this next section, I'll describe different models and alternatives that groups and communities have identified that could possibly work in a cooperative model, and that we have been in discussions with on starting their cooperative. So the one is livestock. So a lack of local slaughter, cut and wrap meat facilities in the region. So local facilities are either too expensive or too busy to take on new products or producers. And producers either have to pay high shipping costs or unable to process traditional meats for their own consumption. So some of the possible structures are cattle producer owned abattoir. So where the cattle producer is, and the co-op is owned by the producers themselves. So the producers can supply the raw product and will be the one in charge of purchasing the facilities, hiring staff to take care of the processing, sales, and administration of the abattoir. The other possible structure is a nation-to-nation owned abattoir. So in this situation, a First Nation used education and training dollars and purchased a butcher program to teach youth and young adults in the community to become trained butchers to produce and sell meat to the community at reasonable prices. The meat shop actually became quite successful and is looking to a second location to sell beef, pork, and chicken products to neighboring nations. So one of the neighboring nations that purchases the meat actually has many cattle farmers who would like to supply their neighbors with the beef, whereas right now the beef is coming from a commercial seller. And then there's the third First Nation that actually has urban reserve land. So they are looking to start and have plans to build a strip mall and looking for tenants. So if they were involved in this cooperative, then the second location could potentially be within an urban area where their members live. So in this situation, the leadership of each nation would be sitting together and deciding the scenario that would work best for each of them and how their communities can benefit and how the co-op can fit all of their needs. The last example of that I have of kind of conversations that we've had is community gardens. In particular, I'm using the potato farming example. So community gardens can be set up either by as an individual producers or a large community worker owned cooperative. And the potatoes are grown by the producers for the co-op. And so the way the structure could work here is the cooperative can either process the potatoes for individual sale of specialized branded potatoes, either through direct channels, so whether it's farmers market or through retailing centers, or it could create a value-added cooperative where the potatoes can be used to create new products such as potato chips, French fries, hash browns, or any other potato-related product. But the co-op would be the one who would do these activities, and the producers would be the owners. So when considering starting a co-op, it is important to discuss membership. You need people to have a co-op, who should be part of it, who will receive benefit, who will do the work, and how will decisions be made. So there are many considerations for starting co-ops. And when we start consulting with different communities or groups, we usually recommend the following steps. So identifying the opportunity. So what is the purpose of the co-op and what are the expected outcomes? Identifying the members and roles. So who should be involved and how will individuals benefit? And how do they see benefits happening? Engaging members. This is the main ingredient to all co-ops. You need people. So you need to identify who and getting the people who you want involved coming in and identifying like how their contribution will equate to success for themselves and the co-op and the community. So ensuring members understand their roles and responsibilities. How do the members want to participate? Will define the structure of the co-op and how it'll be used. Making sure that members know that they're the owners. They have a role to play in the decision-making process, and they own the co-op. And I always have contacting cooperatives first or your local co-op developer to discuss the structure, how you're going to make the co-op work for you, and making sure that the business fits your needs, your values, and your processes. It is your co-op. So what does cooperatives first do? That's the question that we get asked. Is we have the conversation. We like to sit and discuss what the opportunity is. We like hearing the scenarios, the suggestions, and give help. And we help people create their co-ops their way. We share knowledge and expertise of cooperative legislation and the requirements of starting up a co-op in Western Canada. So there are certain processes that have to be checked. So we like to say we are the experts in this, the co-op requirements, and then we just assist groups with understanding how they can start. We also have support, so the awareness of the model, how it works. Sometimes we are called in just to have a community meeting to discuss what is a co-op, how can it work for youth, benefits, what are the different structures, how governance can be created, and we also have incorporation and business support. So some of the other resources we have, like although our territory is based in Western Canada, we do provide many of our tools and resources online for anyone to access that is outside of Western Canada. So this includes our resource site. We have the co-op creator .com. You can check out our website, cooperativefirst.com. We have online courses that can be done either individually or cohort basis. We do have dates that are available on cooperativefirst.com. And of course, the Your Way Together guide and our Your Way Together website. And if you're also interested in hearing inspirational stories of co-ops in all sectors, please follow us on our social media channels or listen to our podcast. It is The Common Share, and it's available on Spotify, Apple Music, Stitcher, or cooperativefirst.com. I have left my information up here, so if you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email or contact me. And as I mentioned before, the website for our Indigenous resources is yourwaytogether.ca. And I want to thank you for attending today's presentation and for allowing me to share my knowledge with you. And I look forward to meeting everybody in the future.